Hello, everyone. This is the Commerce Experience Podcast. In this show, we aim to equip e-commerce professionals with tools and insights needed to thrive in this ever-evolving space. I'm your host, Elena Kachan, Community Marketing Manager at Bloomreach. Today, I'm joined by Jill Borde, Marketing Director at Double Stitch by Bedsure, previously at Tory Burch and J. Crew. And as a leader in marketing across the home and fashion industry, she brings a wealth of experience of understanding data on what consumers need and want, finding the right partners for brand expansion, retail technologies, and so much more. And in this episode, we'll get into the differences between marketing for fashion and home, how her team is leveraging AI, selling an experience, and even the metaverse. Enjoy the show. To give you a peek behind the curtain for those watching on YouTube, this is a special episode today because not only is this my first in-person interview, we are recording in New York City around NRF, retail's biggest show. So the Bloomreach team is downstairs hosting a retreat for all partners, retailers, customers at the Equinox Hotel to provide some relief from the conference floor. So I'm very excited to have you here live, Jillian. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm excited to be here, and this is my first time at the Equinox Hotel, so it's great to be in the space. Right? It's so nice.
So nice. We walked the floor downstairs, and everybody's mingling, but here we are. And like I said, it's special for me because I've not done an in-person interview before, so very excited to have you here with me as my first guest. So let's go ahead and get into it. I want to set the stage because you have been a marketer in the retail industry for most of your career, working for pretty iconic brands, if I might add, but you recently made the transition from fashion to home. So what's the biggest difference you've noticed between the two?
Yeah, the landscape of home and fashion are totally different. I feel like in the fashion industry, you're really looking at the consumer. You're looking at a couple of different target audiences, I'd say. For example, in my time at Tory Burch, I'd say the consumer was an older customer, but then you're always seeking the acquisition of the younger millennials and maybe even some brand interests from Gen Z. Whereas with home, you're marketing more towards families or single people who are seeking comfort, who are seeking maybe some cooling technology in certain bedding textiles. So it's just a different type of marketing tactic that you're using versus in fashion where you're looking at individuality. There are more specifics with how customers shop in fashion versus at home where it's really more of a lifestyle approach of, are you looking for, we like to think of ourselves at Double Stitch as this California cool aesthetic. So yes, that's how
you're selling a vibe.
Yes, you're selling the vibe versus fashion where it's okay, you might have someone who's just likes a bag because of, the way it's designed, but then you also might have a customer that's a brand fan. So it's just, a different type of customer in the fashion industry.
Totally. The reason I ask is because we work with a lot of brands across multiple industries, and I'm curious about what translates from one world to the other. We talked a little bit on the prep call about selling the vibe and the aesthetic versus maybe personal style or individuality. Are you noticing anything? I mean, fashion sounds so much more complicated than home. Are you enjoying the difference, or is it something that you find yourself gravitating back towards your mindset in fashion? What is that like for you?
I definitely find myself thinking about customer segments a lot, which I definitely had to do in fashion, but thinking about how they're different for home and how to really leverage each customer segment and how to create customer segments. In fashion, you could create the segments by categories. You have your handbag customer, your fragrance customer, whereas with home, it's all right, we have sheets. So it's how do we segment the customer even further from, just someone who bought pillows versus someone who bought sheets? How can we speak to them deeper? Is it, we have a really great feature on our website that's a shop by room. We notice our customers like to shop by a certain style, and each shop by room is from an influencer. So, you might like a certain influencer's aesthetic or their home aesthetic or their home style, their lifestyle. So we find that customers really want to emulate that. Whereas with fashion, you felt more of an individuality where the person doesn't really necessarily always want to mimic someone else's style. They'll find inspiration from it, but they really want to make it their own. Whereas in home, someone will literally copy and paste a certain aesthetic because, you just love the way someone's home looks, or you like the way something looked in Better Homes and Gardens or an Architectural Digest, and you literally just want to copy and paste that into your space. And you'll find that a lot more in home.
Copy and paste, girl, right here. I totally get it. Are you a copy and paste person or do you feel it? Okay. So some people just have that in them to where they can like, get inspiration from something like that versus, like I have no idea where to even start. So I'm sure it's a challenge, but it probably challenges you as a marketer to think deeper. And it's like, okay, how can we sell to these customers better based on what they're looking for? So I always find that fascinating as a marketer myself, and every industry is different. So kind of wanted to get your thoughts on both. So in regards to marketing, obviously the phrase on the tip of everyone's tongue across industries really has been AI and how to use it more efficiently and effectively in business, specifically marketing in a lot of ways. Can you talk me through the ways that you and your team are leveraging AI or leveraging the data that AI can produce? Any context there for our listeners?
Yeah, I think AI was really integral a lot in when I was in fashion and really just understanding that customer. We would get a lot of great data from our emails. We do emails leveraging gamification. So you'd get information like, okay, our customer is traveling for the summer and they're going here and they're looking for these types of swimsuits, and like you'd get all of this hard data. But then you'd have to manually kind of go through it, versus now AI can kind of scrub consumer data and make these consumer personalities where you can almost customize how you're speaking to each individual customer. And that's where I think AI is really revolutionizing that customer interaction between the brand and how you're speaking to that customer as an individual versus here's our fragrance email. We're going to launch a shop yet. Enjoy. But it's more of speaking to that customer, hey, Sarah, we see that you really like, XYZ, or we see that you're traveling for the summer. What do you like? Would you like to try these XYZ products? So I feel like AI has been really helpful in creating these customizable interactions for the consumer who's really looking for a specific experience or has a specific aesthetic. So I think AI is really great at analyzing mass amounts of data and giving you back, the specific information you're looking for.
Totally. It's a big help when you have it all in one place too, or at least can help analyze what's coming in and what the consumer's actually buying, what they're actually interested in, clicking on, potentially putting in their cart, things like that. I know e-commerce and online shopping is something huge, but now that we're able to track that, I mean, it is creepy to some level, but it helps us marketers better understand the customers that are buying from us, which gives them a more personalized experience, which I'm all about. I'm curious to hear, do you feel like AI could pull kind of a lifestyle vision and provide connectivity between what you're offering and what the consumer wants? We kind of talked a little bit about that, but have you experienced that or have you played around with it? What are your thoughts?
I think that's almost where metaverse comes in, because I've been looking a lot about these metaverse spaces, looking at how, Charlotte Tilbury has really utilized these metaverse shopping online experiences to engage her customer, engage a younger customer, and really create a fantasy around, the Charlotte Tilbury ideal space. It's almost ethereal. It's this aesthetic vibe. So I think that in creating these fantasy retail spaces, it's going to be really important for customer shopping experiences going forward. And, Charlotte Tilbury was able to pull herself to the #1, spot in beauty because of, these unique experiences for her customers. So I think that's going to be especially important for the home space, because looking at homes, people do want to almost envision this space, moving through this space. And you're oh, look at how this is styled. Look at this aesthetic, and almost imagining it. And even when you see the brands who are using AI as a try-on tool. So it's Chanel has the try-on sunglasses feature. It's I think that'll be able to advance faster in home than it is in fashion, because they're still trying to figure out the mechanics of try-ons for different body types. So I think for home, it'll be way easier, where you can just scan your space and put a pillow on the couch, or put bed sheets on a certain size bed. Because, beds, you can just type in okay, I have a king, queen, twin, whatever. And this is how the sheets would look on my bed. So I think that'll be a really integral tool for, the home space and engaging people to, shop more, shop deeper, bigger, amounts in their shopping cart.
Totally. if they can actually feel that it's in their space. Like,
Yes.
I think I tried it with Target before, Target or Wayfair, one of the two, and I'm always impressed when I can see what a product looks like in my home. Like if I have an empty space and an empty corner, like how does this plant look or how does this pillow look? So you're kind of, selling the experiences, which is really cool. And then you can, maybe spend more time on the site, which is
Yes.
great for e-commerce marketers, and figuring out what prompted them to buy, or did they play around with it, or how long did it take them? And there's so much data that you can track just with the metaverse. And I think for that purpose, it's really emerging, or will be really helpful, as most brands, like, with fashion, it's a little bit different, like you said, but I'm excited to see where we take it. Are you guys trying that now, or is that something that you haven't yet dabbled into?
Yeah, we're definitely exploring leveraging like the tool where you can like try the pillow in your space and like see how it fits with your aesthetic. I think the most important thing for us will be, gamifying how we engage with our customers via our emails and like increasing like our customer loyalty. So, for a while we were leveraging this community page that was more of a Reddit, but it's really hard for people to, spend that time like sitting there typing out responses. And then again, once they type out the responses, then the marketer has to sit on the back end and like try and pull insights or pull data from these responses, versus like a gamification where you can email a customer or send them an SMS. And it's almost like, a BuzzFeed quiz where they're just clicking through like yes or no, like colors, warm or cool colors. And then you can kind of get this data that's more specific versus peeling through and taking comments. You're like, okay, we saw that 25% of our customers like cool colors. That even helps the design team designing into, what colors we want to leverage for sheets. And versus using like a trend page, you can just ask your customers what they want.
Well, as a community manager myself, I think it's interesting. We do try to leverage our customers' specific experience just so we can constantly improve and give them better experiences. But one thing I thought was interesting was the difference between like what you think the customers want based on intuition versus like the actual data that you're gathering. So with your community, like, are you evolving that space? Is it something that you're actively pursuing? Are you asking them those questions? If so, how? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think we're just constantly asking the questions, and we also refer back to, this is where like the cross-channel communication is so important, like referring back to our design teams and our merchandising teams, like, all right, like what did you guys design into? Actually, we just like got information back from our customers and they're feeling this more, like, could we work into something like this?
Totally.
So really also being able to be nimble, like with the teams, and, being able to give them, usable feedback that they can then take to help sales, help conversion in the future. So I think all of this customer data is going to be really important. And, I always felt like from a fashion perspective, J. Crew did a really good job with like pulling and like engaging with their customers. And they'd always have really great data, like, what our customers were watching on Netflix, like it's stuff you think is random, but then it was like helpful to the marketers, where it was like, okay, like what celebrities can we use as the face of our brand? Well, our customers have been watching, Ted Lasso. So let's use, so it's kind of just, taking that information and making it a useful marketing tool is going to be really important.
So at the heart of marketing, it is all about what the customer wants and what the customer needs. I recently read a piece of data that 76% of consumers think companies should know and anticipate their needs, and 67% say their standard for customer service has never been higher. And the Amazon effect is real, and there's a very much an expectation. The expectations have just skyrocketed. So how are you guys rising to this challenge when it comes to meeting the customer expectations and understanding what they actually want and need?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually read today that they expect TikTok Shop to, almost like surpass Amazon, and like how customers are being engaged and buying things very like quickly and on demand, the same way they do with the Amazon. So I feel like it's going to be really important, like leveraging those social partners, including Google, because they always have so much data. So whenever you're speaking, as a marketer, you'd always, tap into the Google team, you tap into other like vendors and partners who have this like raw data on, consumer spending, consumer trends. And I think that's one way for marketers to really anticipate what their customers will need is like really leveraging that data. And then like, you know, like we mentioned before, AI is going to scrub each individual customers and give you more information. I think it's always like a sensitive back and forth with like knowing too much about the customer and the customer feeling like this is invasive or like, you know, also just anticipating what they want because, you know, 76% is a large percent that still want you to know and anticipate like, okay, like you should know I'm traveling. So, and I want this tote bag. I've been Googling tote bags all week. You know, anticipate that I need this tote bag and like, you know, send me an SMS link to your new tote bags arrivals or, you know, send me an email. So customers do want that, but they also want you to be nuanced about it. So.
Well, I did see another piece of information or a stat that says 83% of consumers are willing to share their data to get relevant offers and a personalized experience. So we're seeing that more and more with Gen Z, even myself. I'm like, how do I, like if I'm about to travel and I'm looking at base and I'm like trying to get Shay's new weekender bag, I'm like, yeah, I know I'm going to be served other weekender bags because Google's just tracking every move. But I'm on that same page where it's like, okay, it is kind of nice because ads get me sometimes. And so brands can leverage that. I always tell my mom, I'm like, you are a marketer's dream. Like you are just
giving me all buying the information.
Always giving me the information, always buying every ad we serve you, every email, every sale. So I bring that up just because that's 83% are willing to share their data for a personalized experience. Are you seeing that with the home retail sector?
I am. And it's funny, like, because I wonder what that number was, like maybe 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. Like, was it lower? Like, and people are kind of just getting used to the landscape now. So more people actually just want this. Because I feel like a couple of years ago, that was an issue with like data and like, they know too much. And now people are like, actually, I want them to know. Please tell me where I can get this like shaver or like new sheets or whatever.
Anything you're looking for.
Exactly. And make it convenient. I also noticed that, you know, I was speaking to some friends on New Year's and I had a friend who'd mentioned like they were looking for a specific sheet and they had tried one brand and they didn't like it. So they tried another brand. And it's always interesting that customers will take that time to try different things across the same category versus, you know, I feel like back in the day, the boomers might have been like, all right, I got my one thing. Like, I don't know if I love it, but it's here and I'm fine with it. I feel like, you know, the younger consumer is the perfectionist. They're searching for something very specific and they won't stop looking until they feel like it ticked all the boxes. Yeah.
I feel that way personally a lot of times. So I can totally relate. I guess with home and sheets specifically, do you see a lot of loyalty? Like if they love your product, is it something that they will go hard for if it feels like it fits every box?
I feel like we have sheets that are very like cooling when you sleep. So I feel like that's always like, you know, the people who have the fan on all year long.
Yeah.
They're sleeping, even in the winter, fall, it doesn't matter. The fan is always on. So that I feel like is very much a something that the consumer is looking for, like a specific touch point of like, all right, I need this sheet that's like this breathable cotton that cools me when I sleep, so I don't get the sleep sweats.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is, you know, one of our biggest tools is just speaking to fitting a need. And then the other end is the aesthetic people and the lifestyle people who are like the shopper room that we have where it's like you can shop by the room and they feel like it can fit into their aesthetic of their home. So, you know, we have the functional shopper who's like, I need that cooling sheet, need a cooling duvet, or the customer who's just like, I need something beautiful in my home that feels good, soft, comfortable. So
yeah. I think that's where buyer types come into because some buyers are concerned about the feeling that they get from your product versus the data behind your product or why this product is the best. Maybe it's the thread count or the softness or the touch. And other times it's more just like, I just like the way it looks or I just like the way it feels. So you've got to speak to two different types of buyers in their mindsets because not every marketing message is going to fit one or the other. I always think about the fact that when customers shop, they're looking for a solution. They're not looking for a product. So they think, I am having uncomfy sleep and I need a new pillow, or I am sweating in bed every single night and I'm looking for a cooling sheet. So In your marketing, do you feel like you're mindful about how you speak to the solution versus highlighting the product? And maybe that comes from the buyer type conversation, but what are your thoughts around that? Is that something that you're mindful of when you kind of direct your teams to go and market to those different
Yes,
segments?
I've been finding myself like really leaning on the copywriting team because I think because the nuances between products and home are so small, like
Yeah.
it's the copy becomes more important versus fashion. It's like, you know, 7 like pants. It's like, all right, I don't know if anyone's like looking as hard. Like, you know, you have a flare pan, you have a straight leg pan, and it's like more straightforward.
Yes.
Whereas like the nuances and like pillows, it's like, you know, we have like 6 different pillows. We have a pillow that's firm down pillow, soft down pillow, like down mix, firm soft pillow.
Yeah.
So they get all very, you know, very specific. So it's like, as a digital first company, e-commerce first company, you know, how is our editorial speaking to that on our website? You know, you really have to get down to the details of like, oh, you know, down, geese down, like very firm, like full support, like, and you're getting really specific into the nitty versus the pillow that is still a firm pillow, but it's not full down, it's semi down and memory foam. And so it's like speaking to these small nuances and the difference in a firm pillow. They're both a firm pillow, but you know, the down is a little bit softer and someone might want something solid, which like the semi down with the memory foam would give you that more like support. So really speaking to that in editorial copy. So it comes down to a lot in marketing where it's like you're even realizing like how you're speaking to something and romanticizing the product, like that becomes very important. And you know, people don't always think about the copy. You're just like, what's the content? What's the images? Like, you know, and yeah, the images still need to be good and you need to have a ton of video content nowadays. Video is like the only thing that's performing the way it should
Totally.
on the social ads, paid ads. But also if you have voiceover or if you have like text overlay on that content, like, you know, all of that is impacting how the customer is like thinking about your product and imagining it in their space, imagining if they need it or not.
Yeah, exactly. How do you balance the like unique piece of like show and tell? Because your sheets and bedding are very sensory. Like I want to put my hands on things. Do you have locations? How do you get the feeling of what you sell or what you offer into people's hands? Are you thinking about it in a unique way? I know like experiential marketing is very interesting and it's a great way to get people's hands on your products. How are you thinking about that when it comes to touch and other sensory items that you sell?
Yeah, I read today that a lot of DTC companies are leveraging wholesale partners in brick and mortar spaces because they do want the customers to be able to like see their product in person, which they're realizing is becoming more and more important. So yes, the answer is yes. We are, you know, working with Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom to have our products like in a brick and mortar space because we are realizing, okay, you know, wholesale is an important component.
Totally.
And the best part about those big box wholesale partners is that they want to host events with you. And so we're realizing activation is also a really important part of, you know, the component. This past holiday, Bath and Body Works, they did a massive candle in the middle of Times Square that was actually emitting scent. So like you walk around it and you like smell the candle smell. I forgot. It was like the Christmas cookie or something scent. And so you'd smell that when you're near it, but it was also just like a big photo moment of you standing in front of this like 10-foot candle. Yeah. So I feel like those moments are, you know, what gives that like resonance in the consumer's mind of like, actually, I need to go home and order like 10 candles.
Yeah,
Bath and Body Works. And so I think that activation is going to be really important for marketers, especially in this post-COVID world where people do want to be outside and experience things. They feel like they lost time during COVID and they're trying to make up for it trifold. So activation is going to really be impacting the way people shop.
I'm excited to see, like, honestly, nothing makes me happier when I find a brand who is doing it really well. Like, I love that specific example. I think I saw one where Maybelline did like the mascara for their new line in the subway where like as the subway went by, it kind of like graced the brush. And it's like, oh, I actually like see the brush and I can actually see the bristles and hold it. I think those examples are so smart because we see so many messages a day and it's really hard to capture attention. So it's like, how can we be creative? How can we make this feel unique and make the consumer feel like this is something that they need, or give them a memory or an experience that they won't forget, like that smell of the candle, like so smart.
I feel like that was trending too with these the AI content on Instagram, where it was like in fashion you were just seeing brands like do a ton of AI content, but you know, it was supposed to look like IRL, where it's like the big Jacquemus bag, like driving down the street. People thought that was real for like a real activation, and it was AI. So creating these like viral moments of activation, but through AI. And I've been noticing that AI is playing a big component in the home space of where people will create these AI fantasy spaces where it's like some ski chalet, then it's snowing and, you know, it's this beautiful home, but it's AI. It's not a real home. But, you know, people engage in like with this image and like comment a lot. And they're like, ooh, I love this space. Like, oh, I love this like style of blanket. So then you see a lot of brands using this AI generated image also as a way to get feedback from consumers of like what they're interested in. Like, ooh, I really love the way these shearling blankets look. Like, I would love to get a shearling blanket like this. So it's like,
Google.
Yes, exactly, right? Google
and you need to be on the top of the page.
Exactly. And then you amp up your Google ad search.
Yes. Google Shopping has changed the game for me personally. And I don't know about those listening, but whenever I need something that I'm not brand loyal to, like I just need something very specific, like the first things that come up from a shopping standpoint are the first things I look at, and I'll dive in and I'll be like, are you having a sale? Like, what's happening here? So I find that, I mean, I'm curious to hear like with the home aesthetic space, like it is visual because you want to see it, but price is also a factor into that. So you want to make sure you're meeting your customers where they are. Like, where are they shopping? What are they looking for? What do they need? And how can you be there right when they need it?
Yes, exactly. That's so true. And I feel like because, you know, Double Stitch grew as a brand through Amazon first, that Amazon searches and ended up being really important too. That way, like who came up first? Like when you're searching like bed sheets or blankets or pillows in Amazon, and then also buying that ad space within Amazon of like, okay, we want a homepage feature on Amazon. We want like, you know, the in search ads. And it's like, you know, I felt like I didn't think about that as much in fashion because I think sometimes Amazon is like not the first thought in fashion. I think the first thought is always like your DTC, your owned, like how your brand perception is, you know, versus the home space where it's like Amazon is a big contender, a big player. So you do care about like your visibility there, figuring out ad space, not just on Google, but also on Amazon.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw the other day Instagram stories, and Instagram specifically is now generating AI images as well, which is just absolutely crazy. And I love that you said AI is kind of generating inspiration too, because it's like you might not need a designer to come design the set. And you have an AI to put something together, which is just so crazy to think about. But like it allows for it, like it expands beyond human creativity, which I think is kind of cool. But it's like pulling from like what we teach it to pull from, which I find so fascinating. So I'm excited to see how retail is going to leverage AI from that space and find creative ways to either leverage AI, leverage activations in person. I feel like post-COVID world has shifted us from a consumer mindset standpoint. So I'm excited to talk to marketers like you who are thinking creatively and understanding like what it is that people need and want, and then how can we give that to them? So the last piece I wanted to touch on before we wrap, we've been talking about what a unique marketing environment we're in, but social media specifically. So emerging technologies meeting customers where they are, like we just discussed. In your opinion, what is the one thing every brand, regardless of industry or sector, should be more mindful of in order to grab and hold customer attention?
Yeah, I think the customer loyalty component is what I have been like looking at a lot lately. I think a lot of companies have rewards programs, but you know, who are the most impactful in the rewards program space? You know, I think people like to think of like Costco, like people love Costco's rewards, you know, it's a membership based. So, you know, people love that, love engaging with that, you know, the uniqueness, the value of Costco, to the point of like people wearing like Kirkland brand, like t-shirts, like that's like a cool thing. Like people love it. So kind of creating that like brand value and that like consumer loyalty and like almost a consumer obsession, like to wear a Kirkland t-shirt. Like you really have to love Costco.
Yeah.
And how are we engaging the customer? Like I mentioned, the gamification. I think that's going to be really important for pulling that customer data and really understanding your customer deeper. But also, how to, I think it's hard for the customers and the brands to decide like, okay, how much sailing are we doing? Like, do we engage customer with a discount? Like, is our brand more premium? We don't want to engage them with a discount. So how are we creating like that value and engagement for them if we're not using a discount? So really just understanding your brand, like, the premium versus luxury, and then making a plan from there of like what would be an impactful like rewards program. And I feel like a lot of brands do leverage this like point system or like a tiered system of, okay, like we have our most engaged customer, like that's the one that we're maybe inviting to events. Like if we have a fashion show for a fashion brand, like we're inviting our like top customers to our fashion show, which you'll see a lot of luxury brands do, where they're like, inviting their customers to London for their show. And it's like, okay, now I want to be a number one customer again. I'll spend $50,000 again with this brand next year just for that experience. So I think creating those exclusive experiences, like if you're a premium brand, are important. And then if you're, a bargain brand, a value brand, it's going to be that like discount model of like, I'll keep shopping if you keep sending me coupons and discounts.
I love that you said selling the unique experience or an exclusive experience.
Yeah.
I think brands are tapping in now more than ever to create community around those experiences. I think that's something I'm focused on, and I'm always curious to hear how other brands are doing that. So I'm excited to see what experiences come about in 2024, like I said, in the post-pandemic world. But I do think that that's a really great tip and things to keep in mind. Like no one's going to ride for you harder than the customers who are loyal and keep coming back. So how do you reward them? How do you get them continuing to buy, be advocates for you in your space? So there's nothing more exciting when you're like, where did you get your sheets from? And they're like, Don't Stitch. And you're like, okay. And they go hard for your brand without you having to prompt them. So creating those little mini advocates with you on the brand journey in any space is always a big win. So anything else that we didn't touch on that we should, or
No, I feel like we talked about
so many things. I feel like we talked about so many different things today. I loved our conversation. So Jillian, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to have these conversations, actually making me think back again on my plan for this year and what I want to do. So this is great.
Hopefully you all are thinking about your plan for this year as you listen to this episode. It's early January, so you still have time. Thank you guys for listening to this special episode today. If you'd like to see more of these in-person interviews, please let us know. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye.